going to do lesson 13.4, area of polygons. This lesson seems to be a little bit complicated, but I'm going to break it down for you as much as possible. What I did in these notes for you is I wrote out some steps to hopefully help you to guide you through these questions. So the first step is to break up your polygon into shapes that you know you can find the area of. So the type of shapes that we're looking at in these questions have multiple shapes that make them up. So your job is to find the total area. There's not one formula that you can use because it's a figure that's made up of multiple shapes. So what you have to do is break up that figure into the shapes that you know, find the area of those, and then add them all together. So the less shapes that you can break it up into, then ultimately the less work you have to do. So what you want to try to do is make as few shapes as possible when you break up the figure. If you have any blank sections on the shapes that you've broken them up, make sure you can label them, because if you can't find one of the lengths or sides of one of the shapes you broke it up as, then you may have to change what you did. For step 3, you're going to find the area of each of those shapes one at a time, and when you're done, you add them all up. So let's take a look. For the first example, this one's pretty obvious. You have what's clearly a triangle and a rectangle. Now, usually when you see these shapes, this little dotted line is not usually there. So you usually have to draw that line yourself, and then you want to make sure that you can identify the side lengths, etc. when you're doing this. So this 13 centimeters is referring to this whole thing here. The 7 centimeters is just this piece. So if we know that the total length is 13 and from here to here is 7, we can find what this piece is here. So we know that we can actually find the base of this triangle. So this is going to be 6 centimeters, right? Because 6 plus 7 will give us that 13. And the next thing we have to figure out is if we know this length here for this triangle. So you have to look at what you're given. This whole piece is 16. So that means on the top it's also 16. This little chunk here is 8. So if this whole length is 16 and this piece is 8, then that means that this piece must be 8 also, because 8 plus 8 will give me the 16. Okay, this is the hardest part. After you get this done with, then the rest is easy. So now all you have to do is find the area of the triangle separately, and then the area of the rectangle separately, and add them up. So what I like to do is I like to draw them separately. So I take my little triangle, draw it out here, label it. This was 6 centimeters, and this was 8 centimeters. And then I'll draw my rectangle down here. And this is 7 centimeters, and this is 16 centimeters. Okay, so we're going to find the areas separately. So the area of the triangle is 1/2 base times height. So that's going to be 1/2 times 8 times 6. Okay, 1/2 of 8 is 4. So this is area is equal to 4 times 6, which is 24 centimeters squared. So now I know that the triangle is 24. So what I do is I write it in that section and I circle it. Down here, this rectangle, nice and easy, the area of a rectangle is length times width. So this is just going to be 16 times 7. Okay? And that's going to give me 112 centimeters squared. So that's going to go in here. Now we're almost done. To find the total area of the entire figure, we're going to add these two areas together. So you take the area of your triangle, take your area of your rectangle, and add them together. So it's going to be 112 plus 24, and that gives us 136 centimeters squared. Ta-da! That's it. take a look at this one. There's two different ways you can do this. Actually, there's three ways you can do this. You can either break this up like this, whee, and do one triangle here, I'm sorry, rectangle, and one rectangle here. Or you might see it like this. And you have one rectangle here and one big rectangle at the bottom. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which way you choose to do it. You'll get the same answer either way. But I just wanted to make sure you know that there's not always just one right way to do this. You could also, in this case, find the area of the whole thing. It's a square, and then you could subtract this space here. So let's see which way we should do this. The one thing you want to make sure of is whichever way you choose to do, make sure you have the lengths of the pieces that you're looking at. So if I decide to go with this, if I decide to make this one rectangle, I need to make sure that I can find this piece here. So I know that the entire length is 60. Now from this, you can't just figure it out. You always have to look to the opposite side and see if anything's labeled. So sure enough, I see that this piece, this chunk here, is 30 feet. So if this is 30 and the whole thing is 60, then this other piece, when I add it to 30, has to add up to 60. So that means it's also 30 feet. And the reason why, again, is 30 plus 30 will give me 60. Okay, so I know the length and the width for the little rectangle, sorry. And this is already given, 60 and 30, okay? So I'm gonna do the same thing I did before. I'm going to just sketch quickly. Wow, that's pretty bad. 20 feet and 30 feet. And then my big rectangle is 30. Let me just draw it on this side. And 60. Okay, so I just have to find the area of the two rectangles separately. I don't know why I keep saying triangles. Okay, so the first one is length times width. We have 30 times 20. So that's going to give me 3 times 2 is 6, 600 feet squared. So this little guy here is 600 feet squared. And now I have to find the big rectangle. So again, area equals length times width. In this case, it's 60 times 30. 6 times 3 is 18, 2 zeros. So it's 1,800 feet squared. Okay, to find the total area, I need to add them together. So that's going to be 600 plus 1,800, which gives me 2,400 feet squared. Okay, it's really not bad. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you try the your turn on your own. I will caution you here. Just make sure you look across when you're trying to find something. The only way to do this one is to break this up here, right? But how are you going to figure out this length? You have to look carefully. Remember that with a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. So if this is 8, this whole thing has to be 8. So try to see what you have here that can help you find this missing piece. And in number 4, this one is a little tricky to look at. You have to be careful with this one. I'm just gonna say you have to be careful, but I'll give you a hint that if you break it up this way, this gives you a trapezoid and a square. Okay? All right, pause it, try them in your own, and then unpause to check. Okay guys, so here are your solutions. Number 3 is 44 square meters, and number 4 is, 576. So just quickly for number 3, to figure out this little piece here, like I was saying before, you have to look to the opposite side, which is 8. This tells us that this whole length is 8. And if you look carefully, this piece is 3 and this one's 3. So that together is 6, which means that that little missing piece has to be 2. Okay, so I redrew my 2 shapes separately and labeled them. 2 times 6 gives me 12, and then the 8 times 4 gives me 32. Adding them together, I got 44. Hopefully everyone got that one. This one was a little trickier. There's 2 different ways, the way that I showed you, which is slightly easier. You also could have looked at this as a trapezoid and a triangle. You will get the same answer either way. But this one is just slightly easier because you're doing a square here. So it's just 18 times 18. But anyway, so you break it up. Okay, I redrew it. I have my 2 sides are 18 times 18. And then my trapezoid here, to get this length, this is a base, okay? So if you look at it, it's really like this. This is base 1, base 2, and this is your height. Remember that the height in a trapezoid has to have a right angle. So this is not gonna be your height, it would be this one down here. So to find this base here, I look to the opposite side of my square. I know that it's 18, and they're giving us this little chunk is 9. So the other half has to be 9 too. As far as the bottom goes, okay, this whole length is 36. And looking up here, this part is 18. So that means this is 18, and that leaves this other piece is 18. So that's how I was able to label those. Okay, and then using my 2 formulas, I did 18 times 18, which was 324. And then I used the trapezoid formula, and I found that it was 243. Adding those together, I found it was 567. If you chose to look at it as a triangle, it's just more like maybe like a half of a minute extra time, but really not too bad. It depends on what's easier for you to see. So you would break this up into another trapezoid. And again, this is a base. The height has to be a right angle. So that's a base and a base. And this is a height. Remember, you have to think of it as though it's turned like that. Don't mind my nails, guys. You know, we're quarantined, so. This is base 1 and base 2, and this is your height. And you can find that easily and see that that's 243. In this case, it's actually simple because it's all labeled for you. You already have that 9, you already have that base, you already have the height. You don't have to find anything. And then for the triangle, it's the same thing. You don't have to find anything. It's already labeled. So the base and the height are both there. Okay, so I just used the area formula for a triangle and find that it's 324. And when I did this, I found that it's 243. Adding them up, you still get that 567. Okay, so these problems are complicated enough on their own. So when it comes to these real world problems, I'm not gonna do them with you guys. It's this exact same thing. This one's super easy. They're just gonna do just like yesterday's lesson. They're gonna take that extra step to ask you something more. So for this question, you have this rose garden. You're gonna find the area of it easily. And then after that, you're gonna see how many bags of mulch she needs. So all you're gonna do is just basically divide when you're done, okay? I'm not gonna have you guys do that right now. If you'd like to try it, you can. So yeah, it seems tricky. Guys, the hardest part is labeling it and figuring out the pieces that are missing. Okay, so take your time. Don't get stressed out by this. When in doubt, take a little break from the problem, move on to the next one, and then return to it in a minute. You know, maybe if you have a fresh view, you might be able to see something. Overall, the purpose of these questions is to make it easier for yourself. So try not to get yourself too stressed, okay? And when in doubt, ask me a question on Google Classroom. You know I will do my best to answer you as soon as I can. Okay, guys, have fun.